It's August 1st, which means we've officially hit the halfway mark of summer and are headed straight into the August long weekend. Whether you're heading to the lake, lounging on a patio, or savoring a coffee on Corydon, it's the perfect time to slow down and soak it all in. And what better way to unplug from the chaos of social media, streaming overload, and the never-ending news cycle than by diving into a great book. Luckily, it's the first Friday of the month, and that means that Chris Hall is back in the Classic 107 studio with his top picks for August reading. He's also brought along a special guest, Kathleen Friesen from McNally Robinson's Children's Department, who's here to share her recommendations for young readers for this month. Hello, Kathleen and Chris. So great to have you here.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
Okay, so before we get to the books, I got to say, with the mishigas that's going on social media and computers and the rest of it, I'm finding, Chris, that I'm turning to books to sort of unplug and get away from everything. Mm-hmm. Are you hearing that a lot from customers at McNally Robinson?
Well, I think so. Yeah, we've had a very busy summer, and part of it was our Where's Waldo promotion that happened in July, so we had lots of families come through. But no, I sense that. I feel it in myself. I feel like the roller coaster of the news cycle these days is exhausting, and books have always offered an escape in various ways. I think so. Maybe that's partly what's happening. We talk about it as being just a literal escape from the screen. We stare at screens all day. At the end of the day, you pick up a book. It just feels better and feels different, at least, and it's a bit of a rest from the day. But I think even if you want to stay in the loop and interested in what's happening in the news, books have to take a longer view just by their nature. It takes them longer to produce and longer to write, and so they're more reflective and they take in a larger picture. They take in months, maybe years, as to why we're at where we're at, rather than the constant ups and downs of what's happening now. It's a way to say, how did we get here? And things. So I think there's various ways that's true.
And no pop-up ads as well, right?
No pop-up ads, exactly.
Kathleen, you're one of the book buyers for the children's section. How do you choose books that are going to keep kids engaged and sort of pull them away from their tablets?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we always were looking for a wide range to meet all the kids' interests. You know, kids are so unique, and so you want to find those stories that'll draw them in. I love illustrations. I think that's such an amazing world, like a way of just like fully immersing kids in worlds. So there's lots of great graphic novels for older kids, picture books. We'll talk about a really dreamy picture book this morning. Just books are their own world, and so I'm always looking for those unique stories and worlds that kids can kind of lose themselves in.
So let's turn to the books and let's talk about that picture book that you're mentioning, Aggie and the Ghost. It's by Matthew Forsyth. It sounds super charming. What can you tell us about it?
Very charming, very whimsical. Matthew Forsyth, a Canadian author-illustrator, so he's done both here, as well as writing and illustrating books. He's actually an animator, so he was the lead designer on the animated series Adventure Time. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but very quirky character design, and he brings that to his books as well. So Aggie and the Ghost. This is a story about setting boundaries with your ghost. And so the story begins, Aggie was very excited to live on her own until she found out her house was haunted. And this ghost just follows Aggie around everywhere. But all Aggie wants is some alone time. So she's got to set some boundaries with her ghost. She set some rules. She says, no haunting after dark, no stealing my socks, and stop eating all the cheese.
And so, what happens when the ghost breaks the rules? How does Aggie deal with that?
It turns out the ghost hates rules, and he just can't live in this situation, so he kind of becomes frustrated. He breaks all the rules, and then he leaves. And Aggie kind of realizes as soon as she gets what she wants, which is some alone time, maybe that's not perfect after all. So, she's got to deal with those feelings now.
I was on his website, Matthew Forsyth's website. His drawings and artwork are incredible. How would you describe the artwork in this picture book?
Yeah, he uses watercolor and colored pencil, And it's very kind of dreamy, gentle, almost pastel-like. It's just, so evocative, and it's not like a scary ghost story. It's just so whimsical, and I just love the expressions that he uses for the characters. You just see that ghost always kind of like popping out from wherever he is. It's great. I love it.
And then the other book you brought is called You Were Made for This World. It's edited by Stephanie and Sarah Sinclair. It's described as a collection of letters and art for young people. Who are the letters addressed to, and like what kinds of things do they address? Yeah,
so the subtitle of the book is Celebrated Indigenous Voices Speak to Young People. So they've collected, letters from Indigenous voices from across Turtle Island. These are artists, they're authors, they're politicians, they're hockey players. We've got Wab Canoe, Ethan Bear from the NHL, Tanya Tagak. They're all writing to young people, Indigenous young people, about what it means to be Indigenous today. And each letter is actually paired with original artwork as well, with each theme of the story. And so it's actually just a gorgeous collection. Yeah.
And like, as a youth, like as a teenager, what do you hope? Like, what do you hope that they'll take away from it?
Yeah, so the editors have said that basically the goal is to celebrate the potential of young people and really encourage them to think about who they are, where they come from, where they're going, and share. It's a very joyful collection, so it's wanting to share that sense of joy and pride in tradition and identity and shared teachings. It's really, really powerful. Yeah. And I should mention, too, there's actually another anthology coming out later this month that's geared more towards adult readers. That one from the same editors. It's going to be called A Steady Brightness of Being. And we're actually going to be launching both of those books at the end of the month at Grant Park Store with some very special contributors from the book. So,
it sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Chris, I want to turn it over to you. First, you've brought 3 books, and the first thing that struck me is all written by Canadians. Was this a conscious decision? Was this sort of a by Canadian thing with you?
It is not. I hadn't realized that. So no, it's. I've been asked before how I pick my books, and I think of it as randomly, not quite randomly, but one at a time. So it adds up the way it adds up.
The first book you brought is called You've Changed by Ian Williams. It deals all about marriage and how people change within the marriage. What can you tell us about this book?
Yeah, Ian he raised his profile back in 2019. He won the Giller Prize for his previous novel, Reproduction. And since then, he's a poet. So he's published several volumes of poetry and nonfiction, several books of nonfiction, including the Massey Lecture in 2024 called What I Mean to Say. And yeah, this new story about a middle-aged couple named Beckett and Princess. And their marriage, they think, is basically fine. But then a friend couple visits, and this friend couple is so loudly affectionate and in love that it makes them really look at each other and kind of disrupts their tenuous balance. So Princess, she is a fitness instructor. She thinks the problem is physical, and she throws herself into making herself more physically attractive. Beckett, he's got a contracting business, and he thinks he's got to become more of the man of the, and he struggles with the masculinity as it's defined these days. And yeah, they just realize over the years they've changed. So Williams explores just what is happening within this stressed marriage. It seems very normal marriage, very, we all are imperfect. So are these two characters. It's funny at moments. It's, kind of.
When I was reading it, I was thinking, it's sort of a serious and it could be a dark topic. Yeah. But the book's been described as sharp, inventive, and absurdly funny. How does Ian Williams work in comedy into the book? I would
encapsulate that by saying it's real. It's couples who, marriages aren't perfect. They are negotiations. They're sometimes good, sometimes bad, and you've got to forgive, and that's how you make it through. And so that's what this couple is wrestling with. But they've, maybe the midlife crisis cliche possibly, but that's part of what they're running into. They are having to try to change together and adapt and all those sorts of things. So I would say it's just very real. And so you get to know these characters and you root for both of them and you hope they stay together.
The next book you brought in is a book called Aliens on the Moon by Thomas King. I got to say, reading the summary to this book, it was a bit like reading a Mad Lib. So there's a lot going on in this small town in Ontario. What is this book about, and how do ghosts figure in?
Well, yes, Thomas King, to back up a little bit. I mean, I think I bring every Thomas King novel on what to read. I love his Dreadful Water mystery series, and his literary novels are always a treat. So, yeah, this is one of those literary novels, a very, very amusing and light version of a literary novel, I would say. Really varied group of characters. You're quite right. What is going on? Thea, who is furious at her son for putting her in an old age home. Herb, who has bought the drive-in theater on the edge of town and watches movies on the big screen while hitting golf balls at the screen. Gary and Brenda from the dealership are having an affair. Richard wants to set up a dating profile, but he has no cell phone. It is wild. But it's all the stuff of real life, except for one thing. Aliens have landed on the moon, and they are watching these Earthlings. And they have 3 demands for the planet, but otherwise their motives remain unknown. And it's become something of a convenient excuse from everything from poor golf scores to bad behavior from a boyfriend. It's very amusing. It folds right into what you're saying about wanting an escape. This is a very light, amusing read. You know, not completely divorced from reality, but enough that it's a chuckle almost all the way through it.
From what I understand, the aliens have a pretty drastic effect on the humans. Do you think he's trying to get across a point through the book, or is it like a super obvious point?
No, I would say he treats that pretty lightly too. I mean, I don't want to give too much away as it goes along. It's even the character's response to it is kind of strangely light. They just refer to it. They're not scared. They're not wondering what they're up to. It really just becomes a catch-all excuse for everything that goes wrong with them, and it's kind of funny. I wondered, like, are they going to take over? Is this a story of colonialism? But no, it's nothing quite so obvious as that.
And just light and just a great escape.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And then the final book you brought in is an autobiography, Miriam Toews' A Truce That Is Not Peace. In the summary, it says she answers the question of why she writes 100 different ways. How does she do that and still manage to tell her story?
Yeah, well, you're quite right. It was literally the impulse to write it was a literal question in Mexico City at a literary event, and the host asked her, "Why do you write?" And she had trouble answering it, and every answer she came up with was unsatisfying, and both to her and I mean, not literally the audience at that point, but the people who were listening to her. And so she challenged herself, and years ago, well, not I guess that long ago, she wrote a novel called Fight Night, and she said that was going to be it. She was going to be done writing. So she reached a point in her life, I think, well, I don't know. I don't want to speak for her. It'd be something to ask her at her event that we're having in October. But anyway, she as she tries and struggles to answer that question, as you point out, she keeps coming back to her sister. She keeps coming back to these layers of grief and guilt and futility because her sister committed suicide more than 15 years ago. And she realized that she's been keeping up this internal correspondence with her sister, trying to fill in this silence that has been there ever since. So, why we write, she decides, is impossible to answer as deciding how we live our lives. Like, is it comedy or tragedy or both? And that comedy tragedy thing, I think that's Miriam Toews. That's what she gets done so well. She's that line between laughing and crying.
Does one win out over the other in the book, or is it equal parts?
Well, you can't separate them, I think, is what I would say to that. The ancient people knew that comedy and tragedy were one and the same somehow, two sides of the coin, however you want to put it. And when you read a Miriam Toews novel, you are equally likely to cry and laugh. Anyone who has read it will know what I'm talking about.
As I was said in the beginning of the interview, one of the things I love to do to escape is to read, and I read a lot of history, and in particular, biographies and autobiographies. I'm presuming you know Miriam Taves. You've met her on at least one occasion. Did you discover something about her, and do you see her in a different light now?
Yeah, I know her. I used to work cash shifts with her on Thursday nights at the store, because she used to work at the store. So I don't know her super well, but I certainly have spent time with her. But yeah, it's not a straightforward memoir, but it is a very internal memoir. So yeah, I think it's as insightful for the reader reading that as, because there's no definitive version of Miriam that comes out of this. It's about life. It's about how we all are trying to explore ourselves, and as we change, as we age, and all of those sorts of things. She just really grapples deeply with those questions.
This has been so great, Kathleen and Chris, to have you back. Before I wrap up the conversation, I got to ask: is there anything exciting happening in the month of August at McNally Robinson?
Well, it's a strange combination. It's calm on the outside and getting all worked up on the inside. If I'm noticing very much where I work and where Kathleen works in the back, the marketing department, as it were. Anybody who's planning for the fall, you can tell by, I like to say, but you can tell by the look in their eyes that they're already getting into the fall. So we are planning for big stuff. The events are on pause right now, but by the end of the month, I think the 26th is when Stephanie Sinclair is coming. So yeah, we kick it off that last week of August, and then we're going to go right through Christmas.
Awesome. Chris and Kathleen, this has been just great. The books you've chosen this month are, as always, amazing. Thanks so much for taking the time to drop by and talk to me today.
Thanks as always.
Thank you. Happy August.
Mm-hmm.